It's time once again to Ask Dr. Science. So let's ask Dr. Science.
That's me.
Remember, he knows more than you do.
That's right.
Barbara Smith from Portales, New Mexico writes, Dear Dr. Science, I'm a travel agent, but I still don't understand what makes an airplane fly. Can you help me?
Of course. Airlines go out of their way to make flying a pleasant experience. Free magazines, peanuts and coffee, music on the headphones, nutritious airline food. They give you these things because the true source of aerodynamic lift is faith. When the flight attendants chant their mantra about seat belts and exits, nobody really listens, but the message sinks in, subliminally. We do keep our seat belts fastened even after the head aviator, or is it Avatar? The captain turns off the seatbelt sign. It's the reassuring smile of a stewardess that keeps the plane up, not the wings. And if they didn't give us those dinky little pillows or show us those feel-good Hollywood movies, well, we'd get depressed, and the whole shebang would drop like a rock.
Thank you, Dr. Science. Send your science questions to Ask Dr. Science. Remember, he's not a real doctor.
I have a master's degree
In science. It's time once again to Ask Dr. Science. So let's ask Dr. Science.
That's me.
Remember, he knows more than you do.
That's right.
Beth Kenan from Edmond, Oklahoma writes, Dear Dr. Science, how do you operate one of those all-purpose flashlights? I tried to peel potatoes with it, blow my nose on it. I must say, its all-purpose characteristics were less than satisfactory.
I've faced this problem myself. The pantsuit that said one size fits all, and when I tried to fit us all in it, it ripped at the seams after 4 people. A blatant rip-off. The paper towel dispenser that said rip down, tear up, and when I ripped it down and tore it up, my hands were still wet. And there were reams of low-grade paper and mangled machinery all over the floor. And what about those cans that say, contents under pressure? Why should I buy a can with anxious contents? There's enough stress in this world, and when I buy a can, it better have calm contents or nothing at all. I recommend you take your flashlight back to Hong Kong and try to get your money back. Good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Science. Send your science questions to Ask Dr. Science. Remember, he's not a real doctor.
I have a master's degree
In science. It's time once again to Ask Dr. Science. So let's ask Dr. Science.
That's me.
Remember, he knows more than you do.
That's right.
Ellie Sherson from Manhattan wants to know, Dear Dr. Science, how do you tell a psychologist from a psychiatrist? I know some of both, and I'm always mixing them up.
If you're not sure, use this simple test. Say to your suspect, I hate my parents. The psychiatrist will say, why did you say that? And the psychologist will say, thank you for sharing. As a rule of thumb, psychiatrists generally insist on being called doctor, while psychologists want to be called by their first name. A psychologist usually has just written a slim book about sex or success and hosts his or her own radio talk show. Psychiatrists spend their free time writing letters to the editor of the New York Review of Books. If all else fails, ask the subject directly. Are you a psychiatrist? The psychologist will say, sadly, oh no, but I wish I was, while the psychiatrist will say, why did you ask that? Neither psychiatrist nor psychologist is any fun at all at parties.
Thank you, Dr. Science. Send your science questions to Ask Dr. Science. Remember, he's not a real doctor.
I have a master's degree
In science.
That's me.
Remember, he knows more than you do.
That's right.
Cindy Turner from Tucson, Arizona writes to ask, Dear Dr. Science, if pasteurization is named after Louis Pasteur, who invented homogenization?
Homogenization was discovered by the late Edward G. Robinson, the tough guy actor who was also a collector of fine art. He and Jill St. John, the gorgeous redhead who boasts an IQ of 180, were boiling milk to give to Steve Allen, another brainy Hollywood type who can play the piano and read. They were staying in the summer home of Dom DeLuise and Clint Eastwood when suddenly the pan overflowed and spread a gummy white substance all over Dom and Clint's kitchen floor. That substance proved to be an excellent substitute for natural rubber, thereby eliminating America's dependence on foreign latex. Science and movies owe a lot to Hollywood. That's where homogenization comes from, and thanks for asking.
Thank you, Dr. Science. Send your science questions to Ask Dr. Science. Remember. Wes from West Virginia writes to ask, Dear Dr. Science, what has the computer meant to science?
The computer has meant a gradual and seemingly irreversible deterioration in the mental powers of young scientists. Back when I was cutting my eye teeth on Bunsen burners and Tesla coils, you had to know something. We could all do square roots in our heads and whip through the most complicated differential equations using only our trusty slide rules. I knew the logarithm tables by heart. Well, nowadays, you're lucky to find a scientist under the age of 50 who can do simple long division. This new breed was nursed and weaned on the pocket calculator. When the math gets tough, they run to a mainframe and let a few million microchips get them out of hot water. But the next time there's a black or brownout, see who comes whining to us.
Dear Dr. Science, if science is the new religion, like everybody says, will the Pope get a master's degree?
The Pope already has a master's degree in forestry. His thesis on the lack of palm trees in Poland was written, of course, in Latin, and it's now gathering dust in the Vatican Library. A degree in forestry is superfluous for a pontiff, and I doubt very much if the Pope is equipped or even interested in becoming a scientist. I do know that he is computer literate, and that he uses a computer when he speaks ex cathedra, aided by special infallible software developed by Atari.
Puzzled in the Dark, postmarked Tacoma, Washington, writes, Dear Dr. Science, in order for people to have babies, the female egg has to be fertilized by the male sperm. How does the sperm get to the egg?
It hitchhikes. There are small arteries, or highways, if you will, in the man's urethra. Small foreign bodies, or cars, if you will, pull over and pick up these little spermatozoids, or tiny hitchhikers, and then drive over the speed limit as fast as possible before the natural acids in a woman's body, the highway patrol, if you will, pulls the sperm over for reckless driving. Once they get to the ovum, or garage, they get out of the car, turn off the lights, lock up, take off their shoes, and watch television until they fall asleep. So this is where babies come from. Small suburban ranch-style homes hidden deep in a woman's body. I hope I've answered your question, and good luck on your date tonight.
Kathy Tennyson from Portland, Oregon writes, Dear Dr. Science, please explain the reproductive process of the praying mantis. I know the female bites the male's head off, but what happens then?
Then the fun begins. Scientists who study insects are called crawlyologists. The rest of us hold the insect world in revulsion. But crawlyologists, they love to look at ants and beetles, while real scientists study numbers in sterile white rooms. Real scientists leave the study of those tiny, brutal, many-legged sensualists to Walt Disney documentaries narrated by Rex Allen. Frankly, the idea of having my head eaten off after or during a moment of intimacy is not conducive to sexual desire. This is probably why so many crawlyologists are virgins, and the few of them that aren't are either headless or women.
Turn the record over.